We got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the Lord. Stress to the youth that neither racial intolerance or lack of civility are allowable in our society. We have come a long way as a nation, and we should never let the hands of time be turned backwards. We all have to get along if we're going to engage the promise and the pluck of American freedom and democracy. United we stand, divided we fall. Join us on the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. Call in and let your voice be heard. Tune in on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time.
Looking for a personal injury attorney? Look no further than Columbia, Louisiana. W. Mark McKee specializes in personal injury cases. He is located at 7134 Highway 165 in Columbia, Louisiana. Tell Mark you heard it right here on the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. You may also contact Mark at 318-649-2622. That number again, 318-649-2622. Contact him today. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. We are honored to have you as a guest tonight and want to thank each of you for your faithful support. Without further delay, allow me to introduce to you Mr. Baron Glass. Mr. Glass, take it away.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. Tonight, topic will be, when will the killing of unarmed men stop? State violence, eradication of due process in our criminal justice system, particularly as it is being applied. Tonight, July the 21st, 2016, 8 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, we are broadcasting live. You can go check us out at www.thesmokingglasshour.com. You can call in at 773-897-6398 and join the conversation. No one is excluded. But before I get off into the broadcast, I'm sitting here in the backdrop laughing at several messages that are being sent to me. One is our very own Dr. A.F. Riggins just messaged me. I can tell by his expression, at least by his text message via inbox, that he's like, oh man, I forgot. Tonight we have labeled Glassology 101, which always features Dr. Pastor A.F. Riggins, Senior Pastor, founder, Real Life Church out of Houston, Texas. However, Pastor Riggins just messaged me and said, hey man, did I miss out on something? Did I forget? I said, no, Pastor, you didn't forget. He said, by the way, man, I'm in Mexico, which I knew he was going to be on vacation. So, Pastor, if you're out there listening, I hope you have a wonderful vacation, you and your wife and family. I know you've been working hard. You're working on that doctorate degree. So I'm already speaking it to an existence because I know that you've already got that master's, you got that bachelor's, and there's nothing that's going to stop you from obtaining that doctorate degree. So Pastor Riggins, enjoy. Also, one of our other hosts out there, which this is sort of funny, but it's not that funny. Mr. Aaron Hopkins is out there, and he said, Baron, I may miss the show tonight because I'm having some difficulties with my headlights. So we yada, yada, yada. We talk. He said, well, let's get to the serious bit. He said, man, I don't want to get caught on the road and have to face the police and risk my life. So, Aaron, as I told you, if you have the opportunity to make it on, that's fine live. If not, I know he's out there listening on Spreaker.com, and we welcome Aaron. I hope that he can make it safe. Hope he can get his lights and stuff ready. I see Belinda out there. I see Deb out there. I see, I believe Nikki is out there. I'm not sure where Dave Lamont is, but we're always joined by Nikki Bedwick, Vanessa Ghazi, Aaron Hopkins, Vanessa's out there, Paula Stafford, Debbie Dilks, Dave Lamont, Corey Jackson, and again, Pastor A.F. Riggins. Also, I had promised a relative of mine that if they're out there listening, I hope they are, that is struggling with several forms of cancer. In the mid-50s, I don't even think 55 years of age. We made contact yesterday, and I told them that we would always extend and say a prayer for God's healing hand to be placed upon his body to heal him. I believe he's going back and forward, to the doctor for treatment and so forth and so on. And anybody who have dealt with that personally, you know that it can be trying physically, mentally, and financially. How do I know that? Because 5 days a week, back in, I believe it was 2013, we had to deal with that with my now 86-year-old mother going 5 days a week for treatment for 35 treatments. So it's not something that you take lightly. We know that cancer is always out there approaching somebody's body, so we want to make sure that we send all of those prayers up as we deal with these diseases, and hopefully at some point in time there can be a cure. We also know that the Grand Old Party, the GOP, is having their final night of their Republican convention. And if you start out on Monday night, it was a total meltdown. Start out on Tuesday night, total meltdown. And even on Wednesday night, last night, we know that former candidate Ted Cruz, who is still a remaining senator, got up and spoke, and in his own way did not endorse the nominee, which is Donald Trump. So Mr. Cruz basically ended by saying, whenever you vote, I'm paraphrasing, vote your conscience. So there's a lot of mixed messages. There's a lot of media hype behind that statement and that lack of endorsement. So what we always stress here is that we know that mainstream media's number one goal is to distort the message and divide the people. So, and our goal here is to make a difference by allowing individuals to become engaged in the political process, become engaged in the process as a whole, and actually become community-oriented and do things that can be productive in their prospective communities. Let's look at several terms. Again, tonight we're talking, when will the killing of unarmed men stop? State violence, eradication of due process in our criminal justice system, particularly as it is being applied. Let's look at equality. Equality is basically defined as the quality or state of being equal, the quality or state of having the same rights, social status, etc. Then we hover on down to the definition of freedom. The power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. As we look at equality, freedom, let's take a look at justice. The process or results of using laws to fairly judge and punish crimes and criminals. After we look at equality, freedom, and justice, let's take a look at liberty. The state of being free within a society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. If we were to tie equality, freedom, justice, and liberty, our final term we'll look at tonight will be due process, which is the fair treatment through the normal judicial system, especially as a citizen's entitlement. So if we take all of these terms and look at the final term of due process, it will look at all of the things that are happening, the shootings, all of the crazy stuff that's going on Facebook, all of the things that are causing the other countries around this world to be the laughing stock of the world, the United States. Let's talk to Nikki, Deb, Vanessa, and Paula. Nikki, Deb, Vanessa, and Paula, how you guys doing tonight?
Fine, Baron. How are you?
Doing fine. Paula?
Doing great, Baron.
Okay, Deb, Paula? She may be
on. Yeah, I'm good, right?
Okay. Okay, Vanessa, how are you?
I'm good.
Okay, Nikki, let's start with you. Let's take the topic that we're talking about tonight. When will the killings of unarmed men stop? State violence eradication, a due process in our criminal justice system, particularly as it is applied today in 2016. Talk to me a little bit about that title, Nikki, and let's go from there.
Well, you know, I love your introduction, Baron, and I actually looked up what due process actually is. And I went on legal websites, went back to the Magna Carta, in fact, where it originated from 1,000 years ago. And here is what due process actually is. And I want us to think about the killing of unarmed men, women, children. I want us to think of the instances that we've seen of really excessive force and police brutality, and kind of weigh it against what I'm going to read this. Due process. Due process is a legal requirement that the state must respect all legal rights of a person. Due process balances the power of the law of the land and protects the individual person from it. When the government harms a person without following the exact course of the law, this constitutes a due process violation, which offends the rule of law. The interpretation of due process is sometimes expressed as a command that the government must not be unfair to the people or abuse them physically. The American theory of due process contains implied rights. Both the Fourth and Fifth Amendments contain a due process clause that acts as a safeguard from the arbitrary denial of life, liberty, or property by the government outside the sanction of the law. And as I read that today, and tried to reconcile that with, I looked up at since 2012, the unarmed black men that have been killed, and it's legion. I started to make a list of the names, and there were just too many. Unarmed, and my question is, what? An unarmed man, how can he constitute a threat to the life of a policeman? He's unarmed. The excessive use of force, I mean, my argument is this is state-sanctioned police brutality against a particular group that defies everything I've read in the concept of due process. There is no protection. There is no protection of the law or the right or the physical well-being. I think we all saw the video today where the man was laying with his hands up and was shot, the physical therapist. I think many of us saw the other man laying down and was so physically kicked in the chest by the policeman. I mean, it's not only police abuse, it's a violation of rights and due process. Due process that is supposed to be afforded the citizen.
Right. So when we look at due process and we look at how individuals that lack the finances or the money to hire a lawyer that can actually defend them rather than someone who takes a plea bargain because they're not getting paid. When you look at due process, it appears that once again, due process is not necessarily something that is afforded to all of the people as the Constitution requires it to be. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree with that. No, I absolutely agree with it, Farron.
Okay, Paula, I'm not sure if we're getting the back noise from your line or not, but if you're out there, if you want to talk, all you got to do is put your phone on mute, and that'll be okay. Yes, let me go to Deb. Deb, you heard what Nikki basically talked about. And if you look at due process under the law, if you look at due process when these unarmed individuals are being stopped, do you and remember, we're only seeing a portion of what the actual reality is. But now, there was a lady today who we became Facebook friends. She indicated on another thread that it used to be that some of these shootings were questionable, but now they are actually blatant. And if somebody can actually see that, it's like, well, people don't really care now. They're just doing it because they're getting away with it. Deb, do you think that due process is actually afforded to those? And if not, what should be done?
I don't think it's afforded to them at all. I mean, and we see, I mean, obviously, with the cases we've seen lately, and that poor man and the young man yesterday, I think there was a teacher that was attacked by police today. No, I don't think it's afforded to them at all. What we can do about it, I mean, I'm really not sure anymore. The Black Lives Matter have been protesting, and it doesn't seem to be making a difference. Where we can step in at anymore, we can, I don't know, infiltrate the government. That's my only thing. That's the only thing I can think of right now that is ever going to help this. Because I know right here in Missouri, we live in a Republican-run state, and they are all for guns. They're trying to take away voters' rights right now by using a photo ID. They're bringing in gun manufacturers. I know into my town they're trying to, and they're allowing, and they're still holding up all of that criminal justice bill that Clinton brought in so long ago, and they're hanging on to that. And they're not going to back down. They're not going to back down as long as they have control of our police forces. Mm-hmm. So the people have tried. I mean, they're out there in force, and it just doesn't seem like anybody's listening. Mm-hmm. So that's the only route I can see anymore, is if we get people talking and listening and voting and getting these people out of there so that we can get some people with a conscience in there.
Mm-hmm. Vanessa, Deb mentioned protests, which I was going to bring this to you. There are many in the millennium era that comes as a result of the millennials who basically have stated to me personally, not a certain percentage, but just in general, their concept is that the protesting that existed in the 60s for the baby boomers, the civil rights era, is not necessarily something that is or will work nowadays in 2016. When it comes to the fight for equality, freedom, justice, liberty, all encompassed into one called due process, do you feel as the millennials feel that protesting is not working? And if not, what is it that we can do to continue to bring this to the forefront and continue to fight for all of these things that are supposed to be afforded to individuals, citizens throughout the United States?
Well, like she said, that's a good question, but the way everybody has been divided, and this is how this works. The way everybody's been divided, the people up at the top do not want unity between, it's not just, from the last time we talked, it's not just black people that they're afraid is going to unify, because they're afraid that everybody's going to unify. And when everybody gets on the same page and start realizing that this world could be a whole lot better without all the guns, without all the we don't have to go out and protest anymore. If we ever get full equality, but as long as you got people divided, just like these people at the RNC, the way they're acting, the way they up there, Giuliani and all the rest of them are talking, and when you point out that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group, and you keep all this stuff going, my thing is we need to get to the media. The media is the one that's pumping all this stuff out. I don't know anybody on this phone personally. I've never seen any of you. So the thing is, all I can see is what I see on TV. So if I'm watching the news all the time and it's telling you that, okay, Vanessa's a black woman and her last name is Ghazi, so therefore she's a threat. She's a terrorist because her last name is Ghazi. And if you got enough sense to know that that's not true, because you don't know me, you've never seen me, so it's the media that keeps all this stuff going, and they own the media. So as long as that keeps up, there's never going to be any unity. There's always, they still go shoot us in the street, because it's like the lady said, it done got so blatant now that they don't even care if you got a camera. They don't care if they're wearing body armor. I mean, not the armor, the dash cam and the body cams, and people out here with cell phones, with filming everything. Mm-hmm. They shooting you anyway. And like I was talking to my sister now, she had to tell her 14-year-old son, she said, she asked him, what would you do if a police officer pulled you over and you didn't do anything? And he told her, well, I'm going to ask her what you pulled me over for. And she said, wrong. You're not going to ask him that, because she said, what's going to happen? You go get shot. But the thing is, we can comply all day long, but we still get shot. It was right there on the video with the poor man in Miami, and this is what your millennials are looking at. So they feel like, no, these protests aren't working. These people are coming at us in the form of the military.
Right. And Vanessa, you validated you validated what my question was about. You see, a 14-year-old who they don't look at life differently, and I'm really trying to regress from really telling them how they should deal with issues that they feel is best for them. Because you heard what he said. He said he's going to ask, which he has the right to ask, why is he pulled over? And if he asks that question, why should he be afraid, or why should we have fear that something is going to go wrong because he's politely, Mr. Officer, Mr. Glass, why am I being pulled? He's got a right to ask that question. So if we look at what you just said and we apply that one to the minute, because they group together, what I'm concerned about is, like Aaron Hopkins said, hey, look, Aaron is a grown man, okay, professional. He's worried about not getting home, but the encounter that he might have to address before he get home. And what I'm saying is that you have logical, fair-minded people that now ask, where is my equality? Where's my freedom? Where's my justice? Where's my liberty? And how do I get due process as it should be afforded to me? Let me bring Paula in. Paula, when you look around Facebook, you look around social media, you look around Twitter, you look around mainstream media, the Young Turks and some of those other alternative media outlets out there. When you look at this thing called due process, how do you feel about that in 2016, and do you feel that it is afforded to all the way it should be?
No, I don't. And the reason I think that is because the guy that shot Trayvon Martin was acquitted. The guy that shot the black guy in Minnesota, or I think it was Minnesota, was acquitted. And it's making people angry. And I don't mean black people, I mean everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see Black Lives Matter as a militant group. I think they are a group of people that are stating their case, and it's a legitimate case, but they're not a threat to white people. People need to listen, they need to pay attention, but you're always going to have those people out there that hate because they were taught to hate. And I say that every single time. But I don't think our judicial system is working, and I don't understand why these white policemen that are shooting black people for no reason and causing them to die either on the spot or in the hospital or in jail are being acquitted.
Mm-hmm.
They should be held under the very same standards as anybody else. I mean, if I went out and shot someone, I would go to prison. And I would expect the same thing of a policeman, and particularly a white policeman. Now, I did hear, I don't remember where I heard it, but that black officers should serve the communities in which the people live that they look like, and become a part of the community and become the protectors and servers of those communities. And the same thing with white cops. You know, you put a white cop in a black neighborhood who is prejudiced and afraid for his own life, the results are not going to be good.
Right. And Paula, here's where I try to strike a balance. If African American, black, or officers of color was going out and blatantly shooting white individuals, the same problem that I have now, I would be having the same problem, because to me, it's not about the color. It's about the individual human person. It's about humanity. But the difference is because when you look at the actual population, 12 or 13% overall, and you go to any particular area within the country, unless it's public housing or some of these smaller towns where people have migrated out, and you have you still have some of the remaining folk that were not able to move. It's very seldom you're going to see a majority. So my thing is, Black Lives Matters, once again, it's about justice. It's about justice for those who are not receiving justice. It has absolutely nothing to do with the color. So for those who take the immature approach and use the black, it's really not fair. But let me bring Deb in. She's got a story.
I have one question though, Baron.
Go ahead.
How many black officers do you see shooting white people?
Well, that's a good question.
Pulling them over for no reason and killing them.
Well, number one, Deb. Number one, Paula. Most black officers are probably afraid to do something that their counterparts do. Number two, most black officers basically, some are reluctant to go in those high affluent areas or neighborhood, because most of, when you look in small towns or small areas, in certain cases, they are given commands that you stay on this side and let other people go on the other side. So when you look at all of those things, should it be that way? No, it shouldn't be, because when you take that oath of office, you should be able to patrol in and everywhere. There shouldn't be any restrictions. So we go back to this thing called equality, freedom, justice, and liberty. And it goes off into how is that implemented to each individual person, each individual party, or each individual group, a racial background, or a racial group rather. So again, everything is applied differently. Let me ask Deb. Deb, come on in and share the story that you wanted to share earlier.
Yeah, Baron. I work in an office building, and we just got a new contracting crew to clean the building. And one of the young people that are on this crew is a young black man, and very nice. I met him first time he came in. I introduced myself, and he made a point to say hi when we say hi, because I work late when they come in. And he came in the other night, and he was having trouble. He goes all over Missouri and cleans these little tiny buildings that the boat company has, their little central office. And a lot of them are like tucked away in weird places where you can't find them, like in alleys. They're just little tiny buildings. And he came to me the other night, and he was like, "Do you think you could help me find this building?" He's like, "Do you have access to anything, that would help me find this?" I was like, "I have access to everything that will help you find that. I have all the maps. I know where everything's at, because that's what I do. I inventory all those buildings and things out in the field." So I was like, "I'd be happy to help you find some of them." So I sat there and I found a couple of them, and I told him how to get there. And the next day he started emailing me. He's like, "I'm in Windsor, and I need to find this address." So I would find it for him, and I'd email it back with a picture from Google of what it looks like so he can help find it and stuff. And I helped him all that day. And then the next day, he was like, he said, "I thank you so much for helping me." He said, "You don't know how much I appreciate this." He's like, "I'm going to leave something on your desk." And of course, I emailed him back. It's like, "I don't want you to leave anything on my desk." It's like, "I like helping you. It's cool. Just let's do this. We'll find all these places." So the next day, he comes back to me, and he starts emailing again. And I found a couple places ahead of time. It's like, "Okay, you need to go here, and you need to go here," and stuff like this. He says, "Seriously," he's like, "you have no idea how much you have helped me." He says, "You have no idea how grateful I am." And one of his final sentences in that was, "It diverted all the staring faces." And when he said that, it made me cry, because I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know these areas he's going into. They're like little bitty towns, little predominantly white towns, like Wheaton, Missouri, and Windsor, and where if a young black man drives through there and he's lost and he's looking around and trying to figure out what these things are, they're going to be looking at him like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just broke my heart. So it's like, now my goal is to get him everywhere he needs to be safely, because it's something I can do.
Right. And see, Deb, it's those types of gestures that allows other people to continue to believe or not lose hope that if one person is doing it, that there has to be many others out there doing the same thing. So you see, because words really means nothing. It's those actions that follow up or back up those words. In other words, you see Nikki almost on a daily basis posting things that are directly related to African Americans. It's not something that she has to do. This is not even a problem. But because she loves humanity, and when you look at it, it really is a problem because it's an American problem. But when you look at humanity, when you look at character, when you look at the soul of an individual, if my neighbor is hurting in my community, then if I'm a child of God, I would say, but somebody else may be a child of whoever, that's fine. If I'm a child of the Creator, then when the other person hurt, I hurt. Let's look at this, Nikki. The therapist who was out there on the streets holding his hand up. And let me make sure we let people understand we're not trying any case. We're not even qualified to try a case without the facts, but we can talk about what we have seen. You see the therapist out on the street laying down. You hear the audio with this individual saying that I don't have this, that, or the other. I am a therapist. This is my client, or whatever the case may be. Doing everything that he could possibly do. He's in survival mode, as the attorney suggested last Monday night. He's in survival mode. So even in the survival mode, you still don't get it right. You're still doing something wrong. We cannot change the color of our skin unless we pull some Michael Jackson, and even he couldn't do it. So, Nikki, when you look at this survival mode, you look at that particular case, what do you see that went wrong that could have prevented this guy from getting shot?
Nothing, Baron, because he came. You know, if you notice in the video, there's a man sitting on the curb. He's white. Okay, he's the one with the toy. And so there's two men there. There's two men there. And I saw the man, and I mean, he not only had his hands up, he opened up his whole body. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, look at me. And he's telling him, and it just, he's still shot. The man is no threat whatsoever. And in fact, he's gone into total submission, surrender posture. And he's still shot. So, you know, where you have to go is you have to ask yourself what's coming at him. And I had posted tonight, there's a great article on the supposed war on policemen, and it really is not. I mean, the police are at war with the people. Kind of trace the history of the militarization of the police department, and you know, we hear all of these remedies like the police department has to be taught de-escalation techniques and all of this type of thing. If you look at the history of the militarization of our police force, it was a reaction to civil unrest in the 60s. It was a reaction to civil rights. Somewhere in the 70s, it got even. There were two organizations formed in New York and Los Angeles in the 70s. This is before the war on drugs. One was called STRESS out of Detroit, and the acronym was for Stop the Robberies, Enjoy Safe Streets. There was another one in LA called the Community Resource Against Street Hoodlums. It was called CRASH. In just 2 years, okay, STRESS out of Detroit made more than 6,000 arrests, killed 18 civilians and suspects. Of those killed, all but one was black. They were urban mercenaries in the poor black community. So, I mean, this thing, and then you can go into the 80s, and somewhere this police narrative, I mean, America's always at war on crime, war on drugs, war on something, I mean, you know, our social problems are described as a war. You know, the current one being war on policemen. And this idea of the police force as soldiers who've got to go out every day into these, like guerrilla-type situations, and they're not soldiers. The policemen, gone is the idea, I think, that they're to protect and serve. I mean, I laugh now when I see the policemen giving out popsicles, you know? They're going into these situations with a guerrilla-type, warfare-type attitude. You add to that blatant racism, and you add to that a media that keeps this narrative going of the black man is criminal, black man is thug, and there's also this new narrative of the war on policemen, and that guy didn't have a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all of these factors together. I mean, his best shot was maybe some policeman that had some heart. I mean, if your life depends on that, I mean, I just, when you said Aaron's out there with the headlights, I know what that means. You know, I know what that means. You know, just get home safely, Aaron. You know, But I mean, it's like a crapshoot when you walk out the door, get in your car in the morning, and your whole reliance for your life or your safety or to be brutalized is that some policemen, that one policeman might have a little more heart. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Right.
It's
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say one thing. I was reading today: Million Hoodies for Justice, Black Youth Project, Black Lives Matter are going after the first line of defense when there was a young man killed. His first name was Akia. I forget his last name. The policeman that shot him texted his union representative before he even dialed 911 when the young man lay dying. The first line of defense for these policemen that are doing these things, and in 35 years, one's been indicted in Chicago, and Chicago's notorious. The young man that killed Laquan McDonald, simply because it was affecting the mayoral race. But this PA, it's the police union, is this first line of defense. For the policemen that do this, it provides them legal services. It provides that there's into their contract. It stays before they're even questioned, so that all of the legalities that they need, all of the lawyers and whatnot, are all put in place. So even when they do it, I mean, it's kind of like having a child. If you let your child do something and there are no repercussions, he's going to keep doing it. And that's exactly what's happening in these streets. Nobody is held accountable.
Right.
What does it matter? You know, I'm going to call the police union. The three organizations are, as we speak, in different cities in the country. They're in New York. They are barricading in front of police departments. They publicly stated they're going after the union because this is the one. This is the first line of defense, and this is what enables the rest of the process to take place.
Right. Vanessa, let's look at this several different ways. If you look at history, and I'm almost willing to say that Nikki, Deb, Paula will understand that and or co-sign that there are many people from many different walks of life who really don't understand or do not know what the truth is when it comes to history. Having said that, we know that people of color were always devalued from day one. They were in fact considered 3/5 of a human being. So if people don't really understand the historical aspect of how we came from way over there and how we ended up living here, because people don't have open conversations about those types of things regarding history. And what I'm saying is this: if they don't know what history is, and they care not to even teach it now, how is it that people, the younger generation, can even understand the struggle that we talk about? When we talk about it, it's like, well, just forget about it, because they don't know the trauma. They don't know the psychological aspects of it. They don't know the penetration of the actual soul. When you have to sit there and watch dogs, German shepherds, water hoses, fire hydrants, whips, all of those type things, you have to vividly watch that and say, how in the world could somebody have been that evil, did something to another human being that they had no power and authority to create? So, Vanessa, if we look at all of those misconceptions, I guess my question is, how do you ever get to the point of reconciliation so you can move on to looking at true equality, true freedom, true justice, true liberty, and giving the right to due process?
Well, it's kind of a lot of people that I've been talking to and talking to on Facebook. They kind of push it off into the new youth that are here now, your millennials, and that we need to teach them the truth. because they need to carry it on, to the next generation. Because they cut our generations off. They take us out of history books. They take away all the things that they've done. They lie about all the presidents that we had and the things that these presidents have done. They have put into place are the same stuff that you see going on today. When a president calls a black person a nigger in the Oval Office, I'm not talking about Obama. I mean like Johnson and Nixon. That's the language that they use. And they always tape, and so when all this stuff comes out, you have to understand that stuff keeps going today.
Right.
These are the same people. So we have to teach our youth the truth about their heritage, because they're taking our heritage completely out of the history book. And they figure that, we don't even know our own history, which, is kind of sad, because some of us really don't.
Right.
And when you find out things more and more and more every day, because I did, and I find out, I didn't even know that. Because I'm not going to say I'm embarrassed, but I'm embarrassed to say that I only found out a few years ago that slaves built the White House. Because nobody ever told me that before. I never knew that before. So you have to know our kids have to know the strength and the power that they have. That's ingrained in their DNA, because white supremacy has literally took that away from us. And as a matter of fact, when the so-called war on drugs that Nikki was talking about, it wasn't a war on drugs; it was a war on black people. So when they flooded our communities, which was Reagan, when they flooded the black communities with all these drugs and stuff, we don't have that kind of money. We don't put guns in our neighborhood. We don't put drugs in our neighborhood. That came from the top. And when you redlining and you herding black people into the ghetto, and then you get enough blacks there, the businesses move away. People are stuck with mortgages. They got kids. That's how you create your ghettos. And then you badmouth us all these years about we lazy and we this and we that. Reagan called black women welfare queens. He called black men bucks. And this is the kind of stuff that goes on, but nobody is questioning it. Nobody's even asking about it. Nobody's even saying, well, I can understand why this black person feels that way. Because instead of you asking me all the time, why am I angry, why don't you learn my history?
Hey, Vanessa.
Then you'll know why I'm angry.
Hey, Vanessa, it's almost a high level of ignorance to say that black people are ignorant. I mean, black people are lazy. Simply because who cropped the field? Who babysitted the kids? Who cleaned the house? Who cooked? See, you see, it's the reverse psychology that has been implemented, because, see, what we have to do is really understand, and you have to be logical. You have to use balance. Okay, you could not have been lazy when you were able and capable of going from one end of the cotton field chopping to the other before you took a cup of water or a sip of water. You were the one who took the beating. You were the one who actually did all, because if you wanted to kill somebody, you could have killed them by just poisoning the food. So it's obvious that all of this stuff about fear, see, this stuff is indoctrinated in people simply because they know the power of the opposition, but the opposition has still yet to understand who they are. So this concept about being lazy, it's to devalue you because you are actually strong. You are actually picked out to be picked on. So, I mean, what I'm looking at, and I'll take this to Deb, Nikki, Paula, Vanessa, Aaron will be in at some point. What I'm trying to gather now is this. Let's look at the most recent shooting. Again, the guy laying down, holding his hand, telling everything. He's in survival mode. Survival mode still did not help him. So to make a difference, what I'm trying to do is, what else is it that we can do to ensure that if it works for one, maybe it'll work for all of these others, so it won't be no police killing. And the only thing I know, once again, is you have to just change your color. Okay, they say, well, you should not run. Okay, you should just comply. They say all of these things, and even when you do them, there's still another excuse. So that's why I don't really like to talk to people about that, because it's just one excuse out there. What is it, Paula? What is it, Deb? What is it, Nikki, Vanessa, that somebody can offer to where life can be saved, and as a result of that, somebody else's life can be saved? I'm listening.
Who's picking up?
Anybody.
Okay, I'll take it. I absolutely agree with Vanessa. And Vanessa, I think there is something happening, and I see it. It's happening with your youth, your young ones. I see talk now of understanding that there's no economic power. There was a time back in Britain, and Britain was hurting, and a campaign went into effect: buy British, don't buy anything else. And everyone participated in it. Okay, everyone participated in it. Kind of raised the national spirit. I see that kind of talk happening. I see Boyce Watkins out there. I see Cornel West. And I think that I can in any way speak for the black community, but I love that, the awareness of history. I saw your post the other day, Vanessa, on your relative that was lynched.
Yeah.
And I think this and I wept when I read it, but I think this constant kind of disinformation, no information that's been, your culture's denied. I had a woman today, I swear to goodness, on a friend of mine who's a black woman, her page, excused that killing today, saying it was Darwinism. And she was right on my alley, because I really know what Darwinism is, okay? She said it was Darwinism. So I said, does that mean survival? I got kind of cheeky, does that mean survival of the fittest? The strong is going to, survive against the weak? And she got very testy, and I said, you defeated your own argument, because the strength there was the badge, the gun. That was the strength. And I think we're kind of in an extinction mode here. She used the excuse for that killing today of Darwinism. It was the newest one I heard. I laughed my ass off, But the education that's going on, I look at Angela's post, yours, Baron, this education amongst black youth to really who they are, what they are, where the power lays. I love these organizations that are all over the police department, because it's never going to come from the white. There's Deb there, there's myself, there's Paula. I posted a picture today. 3 of the people blocking the police station in New York were white boys. Where there's individuals, but in mass it does not exist. I think when you speak to white about slavery, it's so far in their distant past, and they know nothing of it, and they know nothing of the horror of it. But they don't know that. But then they don't know about the Jim Crow for the next 100 years. And then after civil rights, and they've all got this. They all want to back to Martin. They've got this idealized idea of Martin Luther King, because he was peaceful. The next thing on Dr. Martin Luther King's agenda was attacking the economic power. He understood that. There was nothing. He was radical. But they talk about, why can't it all be peaceful? Why can't you guys just stop? And that's the prevalent idea. So it has to come. It has to be an organic thing within the black community. Strength in numbers of what's happening now. Because it's not going to be given. Michelle Alexander says it was. After civil rights, when you really read Michelle Alexander, it was just a new system that got into place to continue what had been going on since the 1600s. It's just a whole new system. Okay, it's just not called Jim Crow anymore. It's mass incarceration. It's devastation of the black communities. It's redlining. It's the joke. Joke of being lazy. Try sun up to sundown. With lashes on your back. Try that. Most whites just don't get it, and they don't want to. That's I think that's my biggest outcry there is that moral outrage. You're all seeing it, and it's lack of care. A friend of mine in Virginia says it's lack of care, you know. But until and I don't hold my breath until humanity, until we look at each other, you know, as God's kids.
Well, you know, Nikki, I was sitting listening, and a thought came to my mind. You know, based on all the crops, all the fields that have been plowed, and all those other things, you would think after about 5 or 6 generations, it's time for us to be lazy. If you wanted to be comical about it. Now, no one wants to be lazy, but if a person wants to sit here and you know, denounce that or use it to devalue somebody, then, well, hell, it's time for us to be lazy. What did you do? What did you? I mean, so when you look at it from that standpoint, let me bring Aaron Hopkins in. Aaron, welcome to the show. We know that you were out there trying to make it home in survival mode. We're glad that you were able to do that. Aaron, we're talking tonight about when will the killing of unarmed men stop. State violence, eradication of due process in our criminal justice system, particularly as it is being applied. Now, we've talked about equality, we've talked about freedom, justice, liberty, and we tied that in to due process. When you look at all of this, Aaron, now, do you see due process being afforded? And if not, what can we do to make sure that it's afforded to everybody as it should be?
Well, you know, Baron, listening to Nikki, Vanessa, Paula, and yourself, and you know what my circumstances were today for a couple of hours, we have to now become accepted or be in an accepted state of reality. You use the term, what can we do? Well, if the we is speaking of those of us who are being victimized at the hands of people in power, mm-hmm. there's really nothing else, Baron, that we can do.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
To survive. So I want to paint a picture here, and I want everybody to kind of bear with me, but use common sense, use reality, things that most of us may not have personally experienced, but let's just use some objective thinking for a second. If this was a divorce case and there was a citation of abuse on, let's say, the husband, we'll say the husband in this case is American, generally speaking, not individually pointing at any person, and black people represented the abused wife. Several reported cases, even a conviction of an abuse by the husband against the wife to the point of death. Now, this is I'm not talking about a boyfriend and girlfriend. We're talking about a marriage, so to speak, where this case is now before court. All of us just using our common sense and reason, what verdict would you think the judge would arrive at in terms of the status of this marriage?
It's a good question.
What do you think the judge would rule?
It's a good.
In a marriage, even before divorce, there's a point of what's called separation. Now, I want us to really think about this because a lot of people get this misconstrued and they think, well, you all, because we hear this term a lot, well, why don't you all, if you don't like how you're being treated here, go back to Africa? Or go somewhere else if you don't like how you're being treated here. Well, let's think about that for a second. First of all, you just said it, Baron, and Vanessa said it. Why would we go somewhere when we've got an investment of our sweat equity and things that we have not just contributed, but we're absolutely woven in the fabric of this country? Mm-hmm. Can't get around it. It's an absolute fact. But I just want us to think about this marriage and the abuse, because I know see, I personally know women, and I'm sure there's others on the line, that we have the utmost sympathy for and compassion and want to see them away from that situation by whatever means it takes. Because, first of all, a person that's considered the worst spouse, male or female, does not deserve to be physically beaten by the spouse. And not to say that this doesn't go both ways. There are males who are abused by females too. But the point I make is there's a point where there's a time of separation, and each side or each spouse has to look at an alternative to that abusive marriage.
Correct. So if we take...
I want everybody to think about that.
Yeah, if we take that analogy, Aaron, I was going to throw it out there. Vanessa, Paula, Deb, and Nikki, what do you think about Aaron's assessment?
In domestic violence sort of way, if you have the person that's the abuser and the one that's being abused, whether it's male or female, that abuser always thinks that they're right. And sometimes the one that's being abused thinks that the abuser is right because they feel like they did something wrong. And I've heard that in marriages where, well, if he don't hit me, he don't love me, or if she don't do this, then she don't love me. And as far as America and us are concerned, we do have, some people do wake up they wake up when they're being abused and they try their best to get away.
But Vanessa,
and then sometimes
wouldn't that be a direct form of indoctrination? Well, if he don't love me, I mean, it's either right or wrong. And some people are so good that they make you believe that wrong is right. And again, you tell me, and I just had to throw it in there, but go ahead.
Yeah, because I was in an abusive situation, but I never felt that he was right.
Hey, Vanessa.
And it took me...
Hey, Vanessa, not meaning to cut you, but I just got a message that says, Vanessa just described the mind of a real slave. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like being... Exactly. Just like Aaron, just like he's saying, if you chain to that, you seen that thing with the elephant, the baby elephant. When you've been conditioned to believe that you can only go so far because your abuser is, beating the crap out of you or whatever, or they threaten you. Because a lot of women don't leave because they're threatened with death. Mm-hmm. And some men have actually, found a woman and they've actually killed her. So that when you have your abuser, that basically they're teaching you to be a slave. Well, you better do this or I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. And like Aaron was saying, it's pretty much how America and us have that kind of a relationship.
Hey, Vanessa.
So if we don't break...
While you're going, there's a message that says the abuser would never relinquish control unless it was forced. You agree with that?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So when you have to learn to fight back, and if you have to do it physically or however you have to do it. So let me jump in here. So you heard what you just said. Sometimes you have to fight back. Yeah.
Okay, so if these young millennials, Black Lives Matters, and all of those other groups that are out there, if they are now fighting back, where's the problem?
You said where's the problem?
Yeah, I said. Where, go ahead, caller. Come on in, caller. Was that Deb or Paula? Come on in.
That was Deb.
Okay, come on in. Come on in, Deb.
No, it wasn't me. I'm not sure who it was.
Okay.
Steve Barron.
Okay, come on in.
Me.
Oh, I love Aaron's analogy, and I love what Vanessa's saying. There's a thing in psychology about battered woman syndrome. Okay, the battered woman syndrome is she's battered, but she's powerless to leave. Okay, there's an identification. It's the abuser. It's the abused identifying with the abuser.
It's a psychological profile. And she stays and she stays and she stays and she keeps hoping if I love him enough or if I do this enough. And to a great degree, she identifies with the abuse. It's like an abused child. One of the factors in an abused child. Usually, the only time an abused child, a physically abused child, is getting any attention whatsoever, is when he's being hit. So what happens is the child gets cross-wired in his head about pain being affection. Okay, it can happen. It happens to all abused children this way. So there's this cross-wiring that goes on. Okay, and with battered women, it's the same kind of thing. I used to work with them, and I used to say I could take a battered woman out of a situation. I could put her in a room of 300 men, and she would pick the one that was going to batter her. She would pick her next one, and until that gets addressed, or until a woman, you know, many women are in jail today for murder in a way that they never were, because at a certain point they blow off. They cannot get out. They don't know how to get out. They have children. He's violent, but they've had enough. And oftentimes they erupt and they murder the spouse. In fact, there was a whole movement not too long ago to try to get some clemency for these women. And I think that has been the relationship with a white America with its black citizens. I don't know that some of that isn't responsible for what goes on. I mean, you heard people into why is there so much violence in inner city? Okay, first of all, I grew up poor. We were running out and robbing the rich neighbor down the street. You hurt people in like that, you create that condition. You know, we begin to rob each other. We're robbing the old lady down the street. Okay, we begin to kill each other. The spirit of poverty. Okay, and there's no generosity in poverty, and it becomes a dog-eat-dog thing, and that's the condition in our ghettos. I don't wonder also if that worthlessness. You tell a child he's worthless long enough. You know, all you have to do is look at a child. You tell him he's no good. You tell him he's worthless. You put all the things in place that reinforce that. And there's very few human beings can withstand, can have the inner resource or resilience to withstand against that. And everything in the surroundings reinforces it. And I think, Aaron, your analogy, what would the judge say? He'd order a divorce. You know, he'd order that the abuser was wrong and maybe should go to prison. But I think that's the condition, and I think the young folks, whether they're that young, I don't know. I think what's happening and what I see happening in those grassroots organizations is saying, no way, no way, no more, no way, no way. We're a new generation, and that's, I think, the hope.
Okay, let me bring Deb in. She's got a question. Come on in, Deb. Ask your question.
Okay, I hear everybody talking about the marriage situation, and Nikki, you are absolutely right about what happens in a situation like that where there's abuse being had or occurring. My thing is that I do not see the black community doing that. I don't see. I mean, I'm sure there are some that do that lay down and will give up and end up in those situations. But the black community is fighting back. My question, I'll tell you,
hold on. Let her go. Let her ask. Go ahead, Deb.
Okay. I am curious though as to and your question, your statement made me think about this. It's like when I see all these leaders, the African American leaders in Washington, in the House, in the Congress, and even out in our communities, that they're supporting Hillary Clinton after the problems that they have caused for the African American community, with their crime bills, with their statements, and with everything they've done. I don't understand why they're supporting them. I have put out a statement on my Facebook page when they had this sit-in, And I said something about teaching old dogs new tricks. And I wasn't necessarily talking about the civil rights leaders who are there, because I know they know how to do that. But they haven't done it in so long that it was like they forgot. And that basically my statement was about others than them, because they were the ones leading it, the ones that were following them. But my question is, they've been through this, they've seen this, they have been drawn into this Clinton administration, and I don't understand. There is not a bone in my body to understand why they are so supportive of this administration when all they want to do is continue what they've started.
Well, Dale.
I mean, I swear, I think they sit up there and enjoy watching the chaos in the streets.
Well, what it is, which is not, let me speak from Aaron and I, because we've already gone on record to say that we're not supporting Clinton or Trump, because it's more about principle than anything. But what's happening is, see, we have all these rules of thumbs that are out there that are not necessarily true, that you're choosing the lesser of two evils, when in fact we know that when you're faced with two evils, you choose neither. But for so long, people have heard and heard and heard. There's something good about the wrong, I guess. My thing is, Stein, Sanders. I mean, let me just go on record. I've been a Bernie from day one. He has no chance of winning. I'm facing reality. He has absolutely no chance of winning. None whatsoever. Now, you and the rest of them may feel opposite, and that's fine. What I'm saying is, I look at reality, but the reality that I see is the fact that I'm not choosing Clinton. I'm not choosing Trump. If I'm going to vote for somebody, I'm going to vote for somebody who I can at least feel a little bit more comfortable with some of the values that I have, which is Stein, Johnson, or somebody else that's out there. But it will not go for those two. I understand exactly what you're saying, Deb, and I agree with you about 99% of what you're saying. But that other fact is that, like you said, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That rule of thumb, when you choose the lesser of two evils, that stuff, it holds true. Come on in, Nikki.
I just wanted to qualify with Deb. Deb, I was talking about historically. I wasn't talking about now with its, kind of battered syndrome. And I was talking about historically, and I wasn't just talking about the young kids today. But I think it's an awakening. I think it's you don't necessarily have to be young, and I think it's been a process of education. I think the educating black youth, educating is, as you said, Baron Aaron, your children as to what their history is, what their position is, and what they got to do. But the situation I was talking about, and it's maybe what you allude to, Baron, being the slave mentality. I think people were kept down for so long and kept down by force and brutality. I was reading a black author, Bell Hooks, the other day, and she said she never really thought that lynchings were for punishment. She thought they were for fear. You step out of line, and this is what will happen to you. They were used as the example. So you had that all through Jim Crow, and so I was talking about historically how the black citizenry is really being kept in tow by the white, and it's been by fear. It's been by fear.
Well, William Lynch told us fear, trust, and envy. And we all know that. And again, the question is, how do you break the cycle? And if Vanessa and Aaron coming in with his analogy, if we're saying that these things continue to happen, and it's hard to break that cycle, and if you apply that to the indoctrination that's going on, it appears to me that it's going to continue to be there. Let's kind of wrap this up. Nikki, we talked about equality, freedom, justice, liberty, due process. I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to start with you, Nikki, then I go to Paula, then I go to Deb, then I go to Vanessa, and then Aaron. Do you feel within this next election in November, regardless as to who wins, how do you see due process playing out when it comes to the brutality and all of the unarmed killings that's going on in 2016?
I think it's going to become more. I think that Trump has emboldened, what was kind of covert has become overt. I think I don't think there's going to be when I look at what's happening within the police force. I don't think there's any commitment to make this better. I believe there's more militarization, and the narrative is going to continue that the police are under attack. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I don't see how now we're suddenly going to get repercussions for these murders on the street, these executions on the street. And I think I think what's happening is the white community want order with no justice, and I don't think the black community is going to give them that.
Okay, Paula.
It's worse before it gets better.
Okay, Paula.
I think it's going to get worse, and not necessarily because if Trump gets elected. I think that if Hillary gets elected, it's going to get worse. And I was talking to a woman today on internet that I talk to a lot, and our conversation was about Benghazi, and there was a survivor that told the story of being a Marine that was there that escaped that. And he felt that many, many, many more people are going to leave the military service under the rule of Hillary Clinton because she's a war hawk. And my concern is they will reinstate the draft where you got to go. But anyway, we started talking about race, and she's white, I'm white. We can't possibly get it. I'm trying. And yesterday I went out to the pool in my apartment complex, and there was a black family out there. There weren't very many people out there, but there was a black family out there. And a little boy was kind of in his life jacket, and he was stuck out by the rope. And I took him by the hand, and I said, now use your arm and kick your feet, and you can swim. And I took him back over to his family. And they said, now what do you tell the lady for helping you? And he said, thank you. And then I struck up a conversation with his mother. And I really think that having one-on-one or small groups of people that can talk about racial injustice and the war on police and the war on blacks and all of these things, I think that it's got to be solved on a smaller basis.
Okay.
Without the outright hatred that goes on in large groups.
Right, exactly. Let's go to Deb. What do you think?
Actually, I thought that was interesting what Paula just said, because I got to thinking about while she was talking, it was like, the African American communities used to operating as a team. White Americans don't band together like that, let me tell you. It's like, we got our own small little things, and that's about where we stay, because there's too many differences between us. So I think she has a really good point there, that sometimes white people are very intimidated because they don't know how to handle this group situation. But I mean, as far as the rest of it goes, you know how I feel. I think Paula's idea is a great idea. I think that's a good place to start. But I also think that if we don't get in, if we don't start looking at our individual states and what's going on, and we get out and talk to our neighbors about voting and getting involved in this political process and getting these people voted out that are doing so much harm to our local communities, we're never going to get anywhere.
That's exactly.
then you take those people and move them up to the higher offices. But we need to concentrate really on these places, especially where these crimes are happening with the police and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get those people out of the police departments, out of the sheriff's departments. I mean, that's the core.
Right. That's very true, Deb. Come on in, Vanessa. What do you think? Are you seeing the changes in the upcoming election, or will it get worse?
I believe it's going to get worse before it ever gets better, because it hasn't really come to a head yet. It's kind of like a volcano that's been asleep, and then all of a sudden it's going to erupt and bam. But as far as like Clinton said that if she became president, that she was going to allocate $1 billion to the police for training. But my question is, how do you train somebody to stop being a racist?
Mm-hmm.
You can't train them to stop doing that. So
right.
As far as all this training, to train the police, I'm like, for what? If you can't get to the core of the problem, because it's coming from the top. These cops are being told what to do. So nobody is facing that issue, period.
Mm-hmm.
It's because, if you don't get the, like it's like having a what you call that thing, a boil. And if you don't get the core out of it, it just keeps coming back. So if we don't get to the core of the problem, nothing's going to change. It's going to stay the same. We're going to still be out here protesting. We're going to still be out here mad. They're going to still keep shooting us. So if you don't get that, you don't get that core out, I just don't think nothing's going to change. I think it's going to get worse.
Okay, Aaron Hopkins, any changes? Talk to us, and we got about 8 minutes left. We're going to close this out. Come on in, Aaron.
Yeah, I really respect what everybody has said in reference to, the topic tonight, Aaron, and the question that I put out there. And I want to do a follow-up to this divorce at some point to kind of paint a picture of what that is really going to look like. Because believe it or not, it is actually taking place, and I think a lot of people have the thought in their mind that all black people are going to get together somewhere. They're going to stop being friends with all the white people that they have. That's not what this is about. And when I talk about this kind of divorce, it's more of the thinking that we're talking about. We have to come away from more so than a physical separation. But there is a real presence of abuse, both mental and physical, and that cannot continue because the reality, Barrett, you stated earlier, these young folk are poised and positioned and ready to fight back. Not because they're aggressing in the fight, but they are absolutely at the point where they understand defense of life is a right, whether people want to agree to that or not. Every human being has a right to defend themselves in terms of their life being at risk. Mm-hmm. That's a law of nature. Mm-hmm. But my point is, what I agree with what everybody else has said in terms of what happened before. It will get worse before it gets better. And I think the worst part is the country turning in on itself and actually the people who are in power showing that they have no intentions of giving up that power.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Right. Well, Aaron, for those of us who believe in prophecy, it has no choice but to get worse because the reaping and the sowing, all of those things shall take place. It also talks about the first shall be last and the last shall be first. All of those things shall take place. So if you start to looking at this map that that has been prophesied for over 200 years, you can't help but to start looking at some things are going to always exist. Racism being one. It's going to always exist. We will never eliminate it. And I'm not even talking about eliminate it. What I'm talking about is addressing it each and every opportunity we have a chance to. Tonight we talked about when will the killing of unarmed men stop. State violence, eradication of due process in our criminal justice system, particularly as it is being applied in 2016. We also talked about the equality, the freedom, the justice, the liberty, all tied into what we know as due process in 2016. We were joined tonight by Nikki Bedwick, Debbie Dilks, Vanessa Ghazi, and Paula Stafford, along with Mr. Aaron Hopkins. And once again, Pastor Riggins on vacation. Aaron, glad that you were able to make it in. I'm not sure what Dave Lamont is. He's been missing in action for a couple of weeks. I hope it wasn't nothing that we did, but if it was, charge it to our head and not our heart. I'm going to say good night to everybody. One thing I failed to do is I failed to open up the line, so if there's any callers out there, I apologize for that. Call in on Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.thesmokingglasshour.com at 773-897-6398. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Baron. Good night, everybody.
Good night, all. Good night.
We sound like the Waltons. Good night.